I know. I
present.
asked
So
you if you had sex, and you were like, not even sex, and I just can't
that's
understand. Sorry.
no, that's okay. That's fine. It's true. I was celibate for about 8.5 years. Om Ganganapataye Namaha Ekadantaye Vidmahe Vakratundaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayate Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
I want to learn how to do that. I really, really want to learn how to do that.
Namaste.
Welcome, Michael Stasko 2.0 podcast. Love and meditation and love. I am so very excited to have you here with me, with us.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here. Very happy to be
You are
here as
such
well.
an incredible individual. I think you're a rarity. You're like a diamond, but like a rare diamond, especially here in Miami.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't know there was going to be flattery like this in the beginning. I would have prepared
Just in
myself.
the beginning.
Okay,
Don't worry.
okay,
It's
good.
going to change in a little bit.
Good.
Tell me a little bit about how you landed in India, and mostly like what made you stay there so long.
I've been in Miami for about 3 years, and I'm from Miami originally. I coach spiritual growth and integration, also do a little bit of meditation, Sanskrit chanting, and things that I learned while I lived in an ashram for about 10 years in South India. And what led me there is a bit of a story. Do we have time for a story?
Sure.
Okay. It's a bit of a story, but I grew up here. I did engineering in university, including a graduate degree, and then I worked in Southern California in that field for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I was in my late 20s. And
wait, this is when you were in LA?
This is what exactly. I was living in Los Angeles and working for the Boeing company on satellite analysis. And I thought that I should feel pretty much like I'd arrived or I feel fulfilled with my life. I got everything that I'd set out to achieve. I was fortunate to get it. I had a great place on the beach. I had a very stable relationship of 5 years. I was making good money in a very stable job, and I didn't feel fulfilled or happy.
So you achieved all these things, and nothing was, once you got all this, the girlfriend, I remember you telling me about a girlfriend, the job. I don't know if you had your own apartment. Everything that we want, right?
I was very fortunate. It's true. I would say that I did get everything that I wanted, and nothing was wrong. There was nothing wrong with my life. But at the same time, I thought, wow, this is it? Is this the extent of what we're supposed to experience with a human, like as a human being? Because it was okay, but I certainly didn't feel whole, alive, fulfilled. And I'm thankful for the experience, but eventually the job became a little bit more, it took more for me to get excited about going to work. I got promoted, and then I got to see more politics. I started traveling a lot for work. In parallel, the relationship also started to become more stale, and then there was some problems in that dynamic. So that ended up ultimately dissolving, and the job was no longer
What took you there? Was it that the relationship? Okay, so you got to this certain space where, we all strive to, especially in our early 20s, we all strive to, create that environment that you're talking about, that you achieved. So once you got there, do you think what threw you off? Was it the breakup that you had, or you started realizing you weren't happy in your job? What really brought you to that space?
It's a great question, because I feel like, especially the younger generation now, a lot of them are questioning, people that are in their late teens as they got out of high school. They're questioning, do I go to university? All those kind of things, because they know there's something a little bit flawed with perhaps the model. So,
the model, exactly.
The model, the society's,
I love that.
like, get good grades, work hard in school, get to a good college, get a good job, meet
the
a nice
model
person,
is flawed.
settle down.
For sure, the model is flawed.
For me, I think it was probably the fact that the job was disappointing ultimately. It was hard for me to really find respect for some of the people. It was super unhealthy. Some of those VPs were traveling so much. They were telling stories. I go home at night. I pick up my little girl. She's crying because she thinks I'm a stranger because I'm at work all the time. And I thought, wow, that's not healthy. I want something more balanced in my life. So I realized I was in the wrong place, and I'd worked for about 6 years to get into that field. So that was a massive investment in time and energy that suddenly dissolved. Same with the relationship. 5 years of a relationship, and it became stale. And then she thought we should get married, which I thought was more of an effort to save the relationship. And I thought, no, we shouldn't get married.
The
We should
usual.
maybe go to couples therapy, but not get married. We're going like this. And then she said, well, I think we should see other people. I was like, well, those are so different things. You should definitely see other people. And we never got back together. So after that, to give you more about the next steps, I knew that I wasn't in the right place in my life. And it was hard because I thought that's where I wanted to be. And fortunately, I got there. Otherwise, I might still be trying to get there today.
Yes.
So I started for the first time asking bigger questions. I wanted to know more about myself. I wanted to know more about my behavior. I ended up in a very toxic relationship after that very stable 5-year relationship I had. Not immediately, but about 3 or 4 months afterwards, I met somebody. And it was the first time I was in a very codependent, very dramatic, and unhealthy relationship. And I stayed for 5 months, 4 or 5 months with that person. And when that finished, that's when I realized, no. I've completely lost my direction. And I'm going to stop everything. I'm not dating anyone. I'm not trying to get another promotion at work. I'm going to sit down and ask myself what I really want. And I want to understand my behavior. So I went to go see a psychoanalyst. I started also reading about human behavior and spirituality. And I discovered that there was a lot of wounds from the past, primarily the relationship with my parents, my mother. I had resentment towards her. We have always had a great relationship, but there was something there.
Yeah, so all your like past wounds started coming up. All that good stuff.
I mean, I was in my early 20s, and it was the first time. Before that, I'd spent majority of my time in my left brain, in my left hemisphere, focusing on engineering. Now this other side was starting to open up, the softer skills. I was developing the emotional competencies to start looking at myself, and I don't think you even get that. I'm a late bloomer, I feel like, for me personally, but I don't think that develops in at least in a young man, perhaps, until his early 20s. So when that happened, it was a huge, beautiful shift for me. I realized there was a whole world I hadn't tended to and explored. I became more cognizant of my feelings, and I began to understand why my behavior was the way it was in certain situations. And with all of this introspection, this is the key thing to get back to. Why did you end up in India? How did you end up in an ashram for 10 years? With all of that introspection, I saw that there was this resentment. And I did reach out to people, my family, my mom, and talk out through those things.
Who?
We have, I think, baked in to us, we have some expectations of our parents. Partly because I think to some extent, we kind of project the creator on them. We come out of a womb that we were physically created in. And we do expect to be kind of unconditionally loved and accepted as we are. But it takes a very whole and integrated person to be able to offer that kind of love. And it's part of our process from a parent.
Yeah, it's so much expectation. I have
There's
the same
so much
expectation with my mother.
Yeah.
And it's like a continuous work that you're mentioning that. And yeah, I think most of us have such high expectations until we realize that they're only human and they're doing the best that they can, right? So
that's the key realization. That's what happened to me. I realized I watched something very traumatic happen to my mom right at this time. So it was perfect. I was already asking big questions. And then when life gave her a proper knock and she crumbled under the weight of that, I thought to myself, wow, look at this. She never had it figured out back then either. She's just this incomplete, normal human doing the best that she could. And just in seeing that from a different perspective and accepting her as she was, I forgave all of the things I had built up resentment on. And then almost like knocking over a domino, the next step was I forgave myself. I think we receive...
You forgave yourself for having anger towards her? Or resentment?
Perhaps that also. I think when we offer... What creates resentment is expectation, which is kind of like a soft judgment, basically.
Yeah.
And when you offer or extend forgiveness to another person, you're choosing to see a different aspect of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, you allow
Yes.
yourself to also see that side of you. So for me, from such a core primordial relationship like a mother, when I forgave her, I also offered it I received it myself somehow. I had put tons of pressure on myself to do well in school, to get good grades. I was never satisfied with myself. It was never good enough. There's all this like,
So
I
like
couldn't accept
overachiever, like
to
you were
overachieve and
trying
yeah.
to do, you didn't feel enough.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Do you
never
think
good
that
enough.
that came from your mom?
Yes, and then at some point it came from me.
Yeah.
And then when I realized the whole thing, it all dropped.
It's kind of like when you're running a race just to prove a point, and then you forget what your point is or the people that you're trying to prove it for, and then you just keep on running, and then you're on your own.
Right. And then one day you go, oh, wait. Do I have to even be running right now?
Yes.
So hopefully that was it. And then once that happened, the next kind of like domino, like it cascaded through a realization. It culminated in a realization. It all happened quite sequentially. And I can tell you exactly where I was. This was the experience that ultimately led me to change the direction of my life. And it was a spiritual experience. And it's always hard to verbalize spiritual experiences because they're quite unique. But it came from inside my heart, and it felt like electric and very alive. It even had like a fragrant component to it, but I remember exactly where I was. And because I'd kind of been like stewing on things and
Mm-hmm.
introspecting and picking things apart, and when I had all that of self acceptance and forgiveness, then inside I had this knowing. And the knowing was, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge myself or anyone else. And once I let go of that, I felt love begin to like flow out of my heart. It was in top, like I could feel it sometimes. Other people could also feel it. But that I say it's the first time I'd had relationships with family and even romantic relationships, but this was different. This was a genuine acceptance of every other human being as not so much different from me. And when I saw them, I could see and feel like, no, I love
And
you.
have you maintained that?
Um,
Did that stay throughout?
so
Did
in
it go
that,
away? And then you're like, wait, I want that back. Because that's unity, right? That's what you feel when, like, I feel that when I do, when I've done either events,
mhm,
with
meditation
whatever
and
meditation I'm doing at the moment in India, Joe Dispenza, or I do an ayahuasca. So, but it only lasts a certain amount of time. That's something that I've had to be able to maintain that feeling of unity and integration and love and gratitude. I need to like meditate on a continuous level. It's almost like an exercise. It seems like you just were so blessed to have it there. And how were you able to stay there?
it was a huge blessing. And I do think we have to be aware. And to answer your question, I think the next 2 years after that, that space was the focus of my life. I already felt like I invested in the world and all those things. I'd been there. This new space became like the destination. And so how I lived, I became very aware of. Everything
Hmm.
I did was no longer about trying to get something done or something I needed in time. It was more about, I'm going to keep this open. And when I see someone, I want to make sure I can connect with them in that way. Otherwise, it will slowly kind of shut down a little. And it was a little bit
Yeah.
back and forth for the beginning. But to be very honest, since that time, it's never been, I've always still felt if I give my attention there, I feel connected.
And then how do you give it there?
For me personally, our attention, this is a beautiful point, our attention is usually caught up in perhaps like what we're seeing or hearing or what our
Uh-huh.
mind demands of us. You have to choose to direct some of that attention to yourself. Attention is the currency of life. You're here for a certain amount of time, and what you choose to pay your attention to It's the only choice you make, and it's the most valuable choice you make, period. So save some for you. And it sounds funny, but when you meditate or do certain practices, and for
Yeah.
me, how I live is the most important one. If I see someone and I'm just kind of rushing and I'm late and I dismiss them, or I come into the checkout line at the grocery store, I'm on my cell phone,
Yeah.
everyone is me, but I have to meet them there. So I have a choice all the time.
But how do you get into that focal point? Like, for example, some people meditate, they drop into their heart. But how did you maintain that sense of love, unity? What type
Just,
of
I know after
what
that
did you do?
experience,
Whether it was a walk, whether you dropped into your heart,
yes,
do you know what I
that's
mean?
it.
Did you
That's it.
visualize your heart? I want to know specifics. I want to
Specifics.
learn. I want to know from Michael what
Okay,
you
so
do.
uh, I'll try to verbalize as best as possible. The first thing was introspection and forgiveness. That's what was the catalyst for like this opening. And then love is something you give. It's not something we feel. It doesn't. It's something that we're offering others. And when we give love, it's a choice. Every time we interact with someone, we have a choice. With anything, you're always interacting with
Yeah.
something else. So you have a choice in that moment. Is this going to become, because I understand the other option means it becomes heady and almost a little bit about the ego and separateness
Yes.
and those kind of things. So um, for me, what precipitated everything was all of that forgiveness and then acceptance. And once that came, then it's you just stop judging. You begin to accept. If you can deeply accept everything around you, then you'll also be able to accept all of that inside. And once that happens, then you're capable of loving. And we talk about self-love all the time.
Yeah, it's
Self,
so easy. It's so easy to be thrown around. I find, it's a word that everybody, I've been hearing for so long. Oh, the main thing to do is to, self-love and yes, I understand it, but to really understand it, to really organically feel that self-love, to me, it's been a work. I've had to really consciously sit with myself, be comfortable being still, understanding that there is so much power in stillness because I'm a doer, and sitting there with whatever emotions, my shadows at the time, whatever stuff I have going on, and then feeling that emotion, not judging it and letting it go through and still love myself when I'm in that shadow. Because I think the most important thing in self-love is to love that dark side.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think one of the keys to loving that is when you see it outside of yourself. You don't judge.
Yes.
Then
Exactly.
we need relationships with everyone. And we're gonna have
We
them anyway.
need relationships.
You need
We
them
need,
because you're gonna
yes.
see an aspect of yourself in someone else that you might not be okay with, and then you get triggered a little bit. So that's your
Yeah,
opportunity to choose
exactly.
to wait, let that trigger kind of go, and just be still and not
Yeah.
judge. That's it. Forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It merely looks and waits and judges not. This is from A Course in Miracles, which I also read at that time in my life. So to answer your question that you asked before, I think that was what precipitated it. And then once that space is kind of there, there's an opportunity. You have more of a target for your attention because it's so activated. Suppose you do a meditation, a heart centering meditation, and you feel after, my heart's so open. So great, you've done a practice and you've started your day like that. How you live is also a practice. One of the most loving feelings you can do is when you see someone and you choose to really connect with them on a human level, you might feel completely heart opened afterwards. And it might even disrupt your day or what you had planned and all those kind of
Yeah.
things. But that was a beautiful exchange. And I tell you a story. At that time, I could tell like what I had to do to keep it open. That was the thing. If you put the attention inside, you'll see where, this is my personal experience, what you decide is going to dictate whether or not you side more with yourself as this limitless loving thing or as some separate thing. This lady came up to me in LA and she was homeless. And when it was in a very kind of sketchy part of Hollywood, I was at the gas station filling my car, and as she walked up to me, I could feel, my first thought was, oh Jesus, like, I hope she doesn't come too close to me because she looks a little bit sick and maybe even, all those things. Scared and
Yeah.
sick. But I was also scared. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
want to
of
be
course.
too close to her. Maybe she's an addict. Maybe she's a criminal. Who knows? But then that was just like a bunch of mental things. And then in my heart, it was very clear. It said, this woman needs love more than anything else. And that was the message from my heart. So as she came close, she started talking. And I looked right at her. I listened to everything she said. And I didn't dismiss her at all. She didn't want anything, actually. And at the end, I embraced her. And we both received something beautiful. She cried. I don't know when the last time she really cried was. I also cried. And I just felt like, no, this is such a... She said some really beautiful things to me after. And after that experience, I left. I was completely like blown open. It was a beautiful thing to meet that person.
What an exchange.
What an exchange. How fortunate. We have that opportunity quite frequently.
Yes.
We're too caught up in time and time.
I think we just forget.
We forget.
And we need to remind ourselves.
Yeah,
that's why
it's true.
We surround ourselves with people that remind us. I want you to remind me, I remind you, you remind me, and that's how it is, right? Over and over again. One of the things that I want to know is, life is normal, the normal roller coaster. It could be or right? So on the days that it's I want to know, what do you do? Do you stop, check in, take a deep breath? What do you do? Breath of fire?
Sure. Me personally, you're asking, or just in general? I think there's tons of tools. And each of us...
But I know, but what do you do?
Me personally.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to be consistent with the story. So like in that time in my life, I hadn't developed a different toolkit. I hadn't done a lot of yoga. I hadn't done any meditation. I'd pretty much just started reading about Eastern philosophy, and everything was precipitated by that forgiveness and acceptance. Mm-hmm. But then once you feel, for me, that was spirituality to me. How I lived was my choice, and anything I did, I can do with love. Anything. I can wash the dishes with love. I can wash the dishes rushed and completely not present, or I can be like offering gratitude and love and acceptance into like the activity. I can walk with love.
So just conscious awareness in the moment, really there.
And heart-centered. With some of my attention will be inside in those moments. Because now this is more awake. Like if you feel the love there, then you get some target. And you say, no, I'm going to stay with that. Mm-hmm. So that becomes the compass for how you live. And what you do might even change. But most importantly, how you do it will be from that space. Not all the time is it like that. Sometimes I lose my center. I just had COVID for like 3 weeks. And I'm usually...
That's definitely going to make you lose your center. That made me lose my center.
It's all these experiences certainly happen. And I by no means want to sit here and give the impression that I'm always in this amazing space. You can see me in traffic sometimes, probably even swearing at one of the cars next to me, or all those kind of things. So it's part of being human and part of the growth process. So I think the most important thing is when those things happen, they become, if I choose, a mechanism to look at myself and learn, but not to carry around and create narrative, guilt, and self-loathing and judgment on. No. If I do like things where I feel like I can behave differently, that I was a growth opportunity that I missed, then I admit, learn from, and step forward. Most important, I forget it. I don't want to carry anything around.
Sure. So it's not like you revisit it because it's not something that you learned. You did something that you weren't happy with, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't want to form narrative, if that makes sense. I don't want to become part of my story necessarily.
What does that mean?
This is like a very in spirituality, I feel like lots of the teachings have this concept of your true nature is one beyond the body and mind. You're the self. Unlimited, unbounded, without any separateness. And the way that I miss that is by choosing the opposite. I choose limitation, and a lot of that has to do with some sort of story. I define myself as something limited, especially when I judge someone,
Yeah.
including myself. All judgment is ego, period. And ego doesn't, it's a tricky word. It's a part of our human existence. It's not an enemy, all those kind of things. But I want to be aware of where I start forming a lot of narrative. It makes me kind of polarized. And
Narrative.
then I create,
So what you're saying is you start becoming aware of what's keeping you at a distance from people, correct?
and from myself.
And
Yes,
from yourself,
yes,
even that
yes,
judgment. Oh,
yes.
I like that, because that creates a space even within yourself
It's
when
only, there's
you're,
only you.
yeah,
That's the beautiful thing. This and this, there's only the self.
yeah,
Great Indian teachers have said these things. Like I haven't had that experience, but I can see now, like, no, when I choose to be loving, there's less distance between you and
yes,
me, and then also between me, like myself, with a capital S. Beyond this, those are the two poles. That's it. Like people say, there's love and there's fear. I'd say, okay, like there's probably more, but ultimately, yeah, fear means you're identified with something limited that believes in scarcity and separateness. And therefore, of course, there's fear because it's temporary. Being human is a wild experience. We know that
yeah,
we're here for a short amount of time, for some amount of time, even how long we don't know. But we're not just this thing. So, in all those moments where it's difficult or all those things, they're just opportunities. If we miss an opportunity, the next opportunity is right around the corner. So, don't worry. In fact, the next opportunity usually is don't judge yourself about it.
yeah.
Don't create a narrative. I'm this kind of person.
You
I'm da
know,
da da da.
I
Yeah.
was meditating in this heart opener meditation, and I was visualizing my heart, and obviously I've gone through, situations, moments. So I saw my heart like a little bit bruised and with some cracks, and then, as I know this sounds really crazy, but as my heart, like the blood was dripping out of my heart, it's like a little, but before the blood would reach the ground, it would become like an orchid, like, and it would just grow into flowers, and my heart started like blooming. And I remember in this heart meditation, which is so beautiful, my day, when I started my day off in that like heart opening, good flow, alive, I saw everything different. When I saw physically and I dropped into my heart and I saw it like that, I saw my heart full, I saw my heart alive, I saw my heart abundant. And even yet, but I understood it was from all these experiences, that I had going on, that sometimes they hurt, they were painful, broken heart, this and that. And my days were just so completely different. So what you're saying is you just become very conscious, aware.
And I agree with what you're saying. Just at that time in my life, I don't think I had too many practices. So
Yeah.
certainly starting your day with what you feel, with what life has brought you. Life has brought each of us different tools. We're unique. And I believe that that's exactly how it works. We just have to be sincere and genuine with what the tools we've received already. So start the day, 2.0 meditation, start the day with your practice, connect. And then be aware. Once you get up and step off the mat, take the
That's
pauses
so
you
good
need.
that you're saying that.
Yeah.
So be aware of
Where
just,
you create separateness.
yeah.
That to me is the most important thing. The more divisive narratives you create, the further you get from yourself. And then that's the key to resilience, actually. When life happens and things go upside down, the more I'm connected to the unchanging part of me, the self, then the less the outside doesn't throw me so much, because change is inevitable. The only thing that doesn't change in our existence is that there's this presence behind everything that we can anchor into through meditation, through being very truly selfless and loving in interactions, non-judgmental, those kind of things. They anchor us in an unmoving peace. The rest swirls. So, and when we're really connected or attached to the outside,
I love that.
then we feel it, right? Someone that we love leaves us or says something painful, or all those things. Whenever we hook on to the outside, which is inevitable, like part of human But we also learn like, ouch, that was kind of painful. And ultimately, I think what we are looking for is that connection with ourselves. We're just looking outside sometimes. Anyway, so I just finished my story really fast. We've gone all over the place.
All right.
But very quickly after that experience, that was the catalyst for everything. I became actually I walked into an acting workshop in Los Angeles, and this lady with two different color eyes grabbed my hand and she looked at me and she said, "You're having this opening right here. I can see it. All this light's coming out." I was like, "Get your hippie hands off of me, you new age weirdo." I was coming out of engineering. I was agnostic. I had nothing to do with like religion or anything, or spirituality, I guess, for that matter. But she was right, and she said you should start going to yoga, reading these books, and anyway, my life had shifted, so I did. And then I found one book. Remember the Bodhi tree in LA?
Yeah.
It was by like.
It's funny because I ended up in acting class too. It's like we have
Very
very similar, you
trajectories?
and I. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're
So-
just like a guy, and I'm like the girl version.
the girl version.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't hang out in India for 10 years.
There's time. There's time. You know,
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah.
But that anyway, I found a book that was written by a saint in South India who passed away in 1950, and it changed everything. I felt deeply connected to him and his teaching. It's a beautiful story. His name was Ramana Maharshi, and he taught that basically you're the self and you just have to inquire inside. He was a boy that felt like he was going to die, and he heavily introverted his mind to search for the source of whatever it was that can die or existed. And he saw that his individuality was just what he called like a collection of thoughts. And just looking for the source of his individuality, he saw that it's not real. And in that moment it dissolved. He let it dissolve and he merged with the self. And from that moment on, he was established in like a non-dual, fully awakened, like an enlightened consciousness. And then somebody wrote down every question that a visitor came and asked him. Later in his life, he became a more popular spiritual teacher. And for 4 years, those question and answer dialogues were written down. That was the book I found, and that was it. I had some experiences, and I realized shortly afterwards I wanted a guru, like a living teacher in the body, for some guidance. And I went to visit every holy person that came to LA, Buddhists, Hindus, monks, swamis, yogis, anyone. But one of them I felt deeply connected with. Her name is Sri Karunamai, for holiness. And that was it. I knew when she walked in. And when I stood in front of her, I felt my heart open even more and deeply connected. And I felt like I knew this is the next chapter in my life. So I served her intimately for 10 years, which I felt extremely fortunate for. If we ever have the chance, I know this subject is something that's sometimes, it's a delicate, sensitive subject. The concept of having a spiritual teacher and a master and a guru. In my experience, I am forever grateful. I received so much from having a teacher.
And that's how you ended up in India, right?
That's why I went. I felt so connected to her. I wanted to spend time with her. I'd never felt that feeling. I wanted to serve her, which is a very strange feeling to have.
Wow.
But I knew it in my being, and I did. And I received tons from that. That's basically what
And you
where I
went
learned
for
everything.
10 years.
I served her for probably a little bit longer than 10 years, and I lived in India for about 8.5 years.
Incredible. What
Yeah.
part?
South India, Andhra Pradesh, in an ashram.
And was it the same ashram the whole
That
time?
was, the same ashram the whole time.
The same ashram?
Yeah, no, I didn't bounce around and like travel. I was committed to my teacher.
Man, because knowing me, I would be like, okay, now I'm going to go, you know?
I felt very full and fulfilled.
Amazing.
And fulfilled by being
I
in
know.
the
I
presence,
asked you if you had sex, and you were like, not even sex. And I just can't understand. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's fine. It's true. I was celibate for about 8.5 years. The whole time I was
That's
in the ashram.
incredible.
Yeah. It happened naturally. That's what I want to say.
That's
That
even better.
feeling,
Yeah.
That feeling, the desire to connect sexually was gone. I felt
I think it's
deeply
because
connected
you
to
were just
myself.
so full. You
I-
didn't
I-
need
I- I
anything
felt
from
very fulfilled.
outside.
Yeah. It was a very
That's
beautiful,
incredible.
beautiful time. Yep. And about a year before I left, I started feeling also like attraction toward women again. I started feeling my desire to have things in the world. And then I
What
knew.
an interesting
I
experience.
knew this is the next chapter is coming up. So here we are.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do you think you received when you were celibate?
What
those
did I receive
eight and
from
a
8.5
half,
years of celibacy?
yes, I want to
Uh,
know.
so I did say it happened naturally. Some people have also asked me, so were you like masturbating the whole time? I said, no, I wasn't masturbating, just to be very clear.
No, I mean, I
But it
think
was,
that makes sense, because
it
if you're masturbating, then you're probably feeling like you're missing
right. Then
something.
you still have urges. But for me,
Yeah.
that whole thing kind of shut down. And to be honest, I felt very integrated, like almost equally as feminine as I was a masculine. And even in that
Mm.
time, my whole I looked different. My face was much rounder. My voice wasn't as deep as it was. I wasn't as masculine. So it's kind of interesting. But
Huh.
it is, in many traditions, a recommended practice for a yogi. And I will say that I definitely received something from celibacy. If you are a sincere in this lineage, there's so many different lineages. I respect all of them, but I think if you are really at a place where you've been doing meditation, you want to experience more and grow more. How do I go deeper? I'm not getting deeper. All those kind of things,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, what do I have to change about my practice? It's also lifestyle related. And to be honest, I think some of the main things to do are observe silence, moderate your food, don't let your tongue like taste after things, don't eat for taste, kind of.
Mm.
Eat to nourish your body, your system, and observe celibacy. Those things have a tremendous effect on your spiritual growth. So I practiced in a lineage that was a little bit more esoteric.
Mm-hmm.
It involved energies in the body. I won't go into too many
So
details.
basically, you didn't miss it. You didn't masturbate. You weren't even thinking about it. So there's just you didn't miss it. What would you say that what you gained was peace, ease? You didn't have to worry about conquering and getting somebody to bed. Did it give you like freedom?
Um, I don't think so. It didn't occupy my mental space. But what I think
Like, give it to me.
what I received was more in my spiritual practices. I felt that I touched certain depths, and I was able to access certain like energies that
Mm.
that I can tell you now, because now I'm not celibate, and something is gone, something has been diminished in my
Okay,
in
yeah,
my
yeah.
in my energetic being and things like that. But it's not there's nothing. Sex isn't bad, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
sex.
sure.
It's just a matter of, at a certain point, I think, in my lineage
Mm-hmm.
anyway, a lot of things in the world, let me just say this, experiences, we want like a new experience, we want to try a new restaurant, we want to have more sex, and sex can be a beautiful way of sharing and expressing love and
Sure.
connecting, and it can be a whole spiritual practice. But sometimes it's a little different from that. All those things are just an attempt to connect. We want to feel connected,
Yeah.
but the ultimate connection is with
Yes.
the self. And when you're connected with the self, the more you feel that, the less likely you are to look for sensual pleasure. You don't eat things that taste good.
Wow,
It
that's so
distracts you. It
interesting.
disconnects you from what you is so alive and nourishing. The most
Yes.
whole, alive, and loved I've ever felt is in sitting in meditation, and I don't want to come out. Like if I'm sometimes even near my teacher, I just felt so loved and safe and
Wow.
connected and expansive. And you don't want to go away from your home. You don't
Yes.
want to come out of that space. Why would you want to? It's like things that taste good are so transient compared to that. It's just a matter of choosing that. And then we have to kind of like, if we're always choosing other things, there'll never be time to go in. We have to carve out time to go
Yeah.
inside. I find, to go back to our previous thing, great value in having a spiritual teacher.
A lot of the times I have seeked outside, whether it was tarot, astrologist, guru, teacher, this, that. And I have found that, and I'm working on this right now, is to listen to my inner compass, my inner guidance. And that's why I also created Point Zero, because I wanted to listen to me. I wanted my brain to shut up and be able to understand what was going on inside me and have a little bit of space in between my thoughts and have that guidance myself. Even though, however, I was so accustomed and codependent on other people and listening to their information, you know, their own experiences, and I almost didn't listen to mine, and I valued what they would say more instead of listening to what my inner being was saying. Everybody's experience is different, even though I do believe I've had incredible teachers from Chinese medicine. I mean, again, you know, but I always believe that we have the answers inside, and it's taken me a while to figure that out.
I think that's exactly what a true, maybe I shouldn't use that word, but in my opinion, that's what a true teacher does. They don't make you dependent on them. They teach you to listen to your inner
Yes.
voice, and they're not different than that. They're an external manifestation of your own sincere yearning to connect with yourself. To me, my teacher was always the feeling in my heart. I still feel connected with her. I haven't seen her in years. I have no need, to be honest. I feel her right now.
Wow.
That connection with myself isn't different than the one I had with her. So a guru is like that. Like it's an outward, they come into your life as an outward manifestation of your own sincere yearning to connect. And I agree with everything you said. The saying is, it doesn't matter how great the teacher is, ultimately you'll have to they can show you, ultimately you'll have to do everything.
Yes.
But they have the wisdom to really help in an amazing way. Amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was 10 years that I served my teacher, I'd have to sit down and say some stories or something to give you some idea of what the grace,
Sure.
what kind of mechanisms that it can award in your life. And it's tricky because it's from my limited perspective that I say there's a separate thing. There's me and my teacher. But from her perspective, there wasn't. She said many times. And she wasn't trying to convince us of anything like her divinity or her greatness. It was about us realizing our connection. So it's having that in your life, I feel is, without going into stories and things like that, 'cause I think we're getting close to time, but that is invaluable. I would suggest you never have to give your power away to someone. There might be some transference in the beginning. That can happen with any other object in your life, any other human relationship that you have. But a real teacher you'll take that back, and you'll still receive the ability to connect. Because ultimately, yes, the self is inside of you, and to hear that voice is amazing. To have someone in your life that's already made that journey is a great benefit. I use GPS to get to your house today. I love it. I don't want to waste time.
Yes, it is like a GPS.
Imagine having
I
that for
understand,
navigating the inner world. It's not. It's way layers more of
Yeah.
complexity and in addition to that, a master. When you just watch someone live from that space, being completely selfless and non-reactive, I've never seen a human being behave like her, where there was just no attachment.
I've seen
to
teachers
anything.
of mine behave that way. Yeah, you're right.
It's a beautiful thing because
Yes.
they're teaching in those moments,
Yeah.
and then more than that, there's also, if I don't want to get too esoteric and new agey, but they have this they have an energy that you can feel and a grace that can be uplifting and transformative. So your meditation in their presence might be different. All those things that it would be another podcast. Maybe we go into details or something. But I think it's worth saying because I love our movement to independence, to spiritual independence. But let's not miss what's going on here. You need relationships to grow. We are in this together. It is not about independence. It certainly isn't about dependence, but it's not about independence either.
No.
It's about recognizing that there's an inter kind of dependence or something. The connections between others are the mechanisms for healing the connection of ourself. And if you so have the opportunity to be in the presence of someone that has made that journey, that is unbelievable and worth valuing. tremendously. So I do have respect for teachers and gurus, and for my guidance I received, I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah. No, same here. I mean, I have similar experiences, and at some point, I ask myself, I really want to find it now within me, even though if there's somebody that I meet and that comes into my life and she has to teach me something or he has to teach me something, I'm very open. And I'm talking more like teachers, gurus. Um, I'm at a point in my life that I want to find the answers within me. The last book that you have read that really impacted you, we want to know.
Oof, that's
So we
such a
can
good
get
question.
inspired from.
The last one that I read that such a tricky question that I felt like I received something from that was valuable to me. Uh, can I give two?
Yes,
Okay, I have like a list
of
going on in my
course.
head. Attached, I enjoyed about attachment styles and attachment
I
theory.
think I know that
Um,
one.
I really like the theme of conscious relationships. That's kind of something I because I love relationships because
Yes,
they're such amazing opportunities for growth.
yes.
And I think it's worthwhile to understand your attachment style. It's kind of a newer concept in psychology, and attached goes into it. It's a simple read, totally light and fun.
Oh, I'm gonna
Uh,
get that. I've seen it. I've seen the cover, but I've never read it, so I'm gonna get it.
and uh, I think that's enough. The other ones are kind of too
You
heavy.
have another one there.
No,
Spit it out. I can
I'm
tell.
constantly reading A Course in Miracles.
Uh-huh.
A Course in Miracles, I think, is an
That's a
amazing.
Bible,
It is a
which
bit
is
of a tome.
amazing, but it's
It's a
amazing.
tome. It's very
I've read the
dense.
shortcut,
It's a
like the
very
Cliff Notes.
it's a very difficult read. It's kind of dense, and it is written in like a Christian context with lots of, but the messaging in there um, really resonates with me, and there's so much to unpack in it that I'm constantly kind
Yes.
of picking it up and rereading it and things like that. So that's always on my reading list. A
Very
Course in
cool.
Miracles. Yep.
Well, listen, thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you.
being
It was my
here,
pleasure and my
for
privilege.
sharing all your knowledge, because you're so knowledgeable. And oh my God, I love, 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 love. Again, you're like this rare diamond. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening to our podcast, Point Zero Experience, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Namaste. Love you so much. Thanks for
Me
having
too.
me. So stiff, but
Why? Why are you
because
so
I've been
stiff?
working out, bro.
You need Pilates.
Probably
You
Pilates
need-
me up.
I
Cook it
notice
up.
you like that. You're like even
Especially
from when.
okay, so just now I worked out back and traps and everything like that. I've been
Okay,
like
got it,
struggling
got
weight,
it,
and like
got it,
blah,
got
blah. But I want also to feel like it's good. It's very good for me to also have this like chunky, masculine, heavy like lifting weight, grounding activity in my life, because the other piece is like meditative and floaty
Yes,
and very
yes,
soft. So
yes,
I feel like
yes.
it's so healthy for me, to be honest. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're balancing yourself out.
Yeah.